Creole-lee. On a foggy morning, deep in the swamps of the island of Serendipity, from a bumpy speckled egg, Creole-lee was born. She was big and fat and very, very ugly. She had warts on her fingers, warts on her toes, bony pointed knees, and a big beak of a nose. But beneath all of that which made her so ugly was the most beautiful heart that ever had beat anywhere on the island of Serendipity. Because of her beautiful heart, Creole-lee thought the most beautiful thoughts that could ever be thought. She thought lovely thoughts because her heart was filled with love. Her thoughts were the happiest because her heart was filled with happiness, and she was as gentle as a butterfly's wing because her heart was as tender as could be. Day in and day out, she would sit alone, sniffing the flowers and talking softly to the trees that grew in the swamp. One day, as she was sitting beneath the large knobby-knot tree, Creole-lee whispered gently to the wind, "Maybe I should share all of my lovely thoughts of joy and happiness with the other animals that live in the swamp. Maybe that would be a good thing to do." So, with that in mind, she waddled off to find some of the fellow creatures of the swamp with whom she could share her love and friendship. "We can all become the best of friends. Oh, what joy! What bliss!" But it was not to be as simple as Creole-lee had hoped it would be. Normally, the swamp was filled with fun and cheerful noises, the screeching of birds, the chatter of the chipmunks, and the roars of the kiki cats. But as Creole-lee crashed through bramble and bush, a hush would fall, and all was quiet and still. Why, even the snakes stopped hissing and silently slithered away when she hobbled by. For you see, of all the creatures that lived in the swamp were downright scared of Creole-lee. They thought that just because she was so fat and ugly, she just had to be mean too. Creole-lee looked and looked, but nowhere could she find a single creature to share her thoughts with, or to become her friend. Soon it became very clear that all the other creatures were hiding from her, as if they were playing some mean-spirited game. Finally, after looking and looking, she sat down with a heavy thump on an old rotten stump, while watermelon-sized tears slipped down her cheeks and fell to her feet. "Why does everyone run away?" she sobbed softly. "All I want in the whole wide world is someone to share my lovely thoughts with, someone who would become my best friend." And then it dawned on her. The others ran away because she scared them away. There was no joy and bliss in all of this. Large oily tears rolled over her cheeks, dripped over and off her belly, and finally landed with a wet kerplunk on the head of a tiny baby alligator that was standing just below. The little alligator looked this way and that, trying to discover who had thrown water at him, when suddenly from above came another large tear. Kerplunk. He looked up and saw Creole-lee's knee, and then her big, big body, and her huge head, all of which was ugly as could be. Surprisingly, he didn't run away. "Why are you throwing water on me?" he stuttered. Shocked at hearing a tiny voice, Creole-lee looked around and at first didn't see a thing. Then the scrabbling of the little gator's claws, digging into the bark of the log as it climbed up beside her, caught Creole-lee's attention. She looked down at the little creature sitting beside her. "I'm so sorry," she gushed. "I didn't know you were down there. The last thing I would ever want to do would be to hurt anyone, especially you." Wiping a tear from her eye, it dawned on Creole-lee that this little creature had not run away like the others. She cocked her head to one side and asked curiously, "Why didn't you run away like everyone else? Don't you think I'm ugly and mean?" "I don't think that anyone's ugly and mean, and I didn't run away because I won't want someone to talk to. The others in the swamp all laugh at me because I stutter." "I would never laugh at you," she said. It was then that Creole-lee looked at the little alligator, and the little alligator looked at Creole-lee, and in a flash of understanding, they both realized that they were exactly what each had been looking for, a friend. Now, there was much joy here. For the longest of times, Creole-lee and her newfound friend sat talking and talking about this and that. They talked about the weather, and whether it was going to be hot, or hotter, or hottest still. They talked, and like good friends are wont to do, they talked some more. Later, as they talked about the beauty in the swamp, Creole-lee sighed. "It's too bad you and I don't have even more friends to share our thoughts with. I wonder what we could do to convince the others not to laugh at you and not to be afraid of me." There was no ready answer, and so for a while they sat there like two bumps on a log and tried to figure out how they could make friends with the other creatures that lived in the swamps of Serendipity. Finally, Creole-lee clapped her hands and laughed with glee. "I know what we can do for you. I will hide behind a big bush, and you will stand in front. When all the creatures have gathered around to laugh at your stutter, I will tell you what to say. They won't run away because they won't see me, and I will whisper wonderful things for you to say." After thinking about it for a bit, the tiny alligator agreed. And so it came to be that as Creole-lee hid behind a thick-leafed lilac bush, she pushed into the clearing with one massive warded hand a very frightened alligator. The alligator gathered all of his courage and timidly called out for the other creatures of the swamp to gather around. He was so scared that had it not been for Creole-lee holding him in place, he would have skittered away to hide. "Please," he stuttered. "They will all laugh at the way I talk." "Do not worry, little friend," she whispered, pushing him back into the clearing for the third time in a row. "I will tell you what to say, and I'll just bet that your stuttering will go away." Now, the other creatures of the swamp, not seeing the scary Creole-lee, came out from hiding to hear what the little stuttering alligator had to say. Anyway, his stuttering always made them laugh. There were 4 old alligators and a couple of young ones. There were 2 little yellow snakes and a big blue one, a couple of mice, a couple of birds, a white heron, and a tiny yellow bird called a shriek. The only creatures that didn't come were the kikis, but they truly were scaredy cats living up to their names. When all were gathered around, the little alligator gulped and slowly began to repeat all the wonderful words that Creole-lee whispered from hiding. He spoke of the beauty of an early morning dawn and the bright glow of a sunset that illuminated the swamp. He talked of love, beauty, and most of all, friendship. To the little alligator's surprise, no one laughed, for the others were amazed at what he had said and how clearly he had said it. For you see, when the little alligator was confident about what he said, he didn't stutter at all. Everything would have been fine had it not been for the nosy blue snake who happened to slither a peek into the lilac bush where Creole-lee was whispering from. The snake's eyes widened in fear, sure that it would be eaten by the monster in the bush. "Run! Run!" he hissed loudly. "The ugly, mean creature is behind the bush. Run for your lives!" Creole-lee tried to tell them not to fear, but she was so eager to soothe them that she scared them even more. "Wait! Wait!" she cried out. "I'm not going to hurt you. The little alligator and I just wanted to be her friends." But the others were far too frightened by what they thought they saw, and they quickly ran away. Quickly, the little alligator chased after the others, shouting in a very crisp, clear voice, "Come back! Her name is Creole-lee, and she is a wonderful creature who wouldn't harm even a flea or a fly. Come back! Come back!" The others, who by this time were well hidden behind bush and brush, quaking in fear, wouldn't listen. It was finally the old white heron, flopping about on the top branches of a knobby-knot tree, who actually listened to what the little gator was saying. "You know," said the Huron, "maybe there is something to what he is saying. After all, Creole-lee has cured the little alligator of his stutter. That's a good thing." Sure enough, during all the fuss and flutter, the little alligator hadn't even stuttered. Not a single word. Slowly, the creatures crept from their hiding places and moved back to the clearing where Creole-lee and the little alligator were waiting. Creole-lee, with a tear dripping down her beak, spoke softly to all of them about the love and tenderness that was stored in her soul. And then the most amazing thing occurred, for as Creole-lee spoke, she was wrapped in the beauty that poured from her heart. The others listened, and as they listened, they saw Creole-lee in a new light. A light that glowed from the inside out. Truly, she wasn't ugly at all. One by one, they all crowded around, and each and every one gave Creole-lee the warmest of serendipity hugs, and they all became the best of friends. Oh, what joy! What bliss! Never, never judge a book by the way you think it's covered, for inside that tattered binding, there is a lot to be discovered. The end. Please subscribe.